Welcome to Charred Oak, the business, bourbon, and becoming podcast where bold ideas meet smooth pours. Hosted by entrepreneurs Matt Gerard and Shane Tice. This is your needed pour of inspiration, insight, and a splash of something strong. Each episode, Matt and Shane dive deep into the world of business, growth, and entrepreneurship, sharing real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that fuel success. Whether you're building your empire or just getting started, this is your space to learn, grow, and become. And of course, no episode is complete without the Bourbon of the Week, a curated tasting and review that pairs perfectly with ambition. So, pour a glass, pull up a seat, and let's build something great, one sip at a time.
Welcome back to Charred Oak. What are our initials again? Bourbon, Business, and Becoming.
Yes.
Sorry, I haven't actually gone through the whole title since we've actually started the show.
It's been a while.
And we haven't drank bourbon in a while. It's a business beer and
beer.
Becoming tonight. But those of you who are new here, I'm your host, Matt Gerard, with Down Range whatever business I'm doing this week.
We need a scroll.
You do too now.
I know, right? And I'm Shane Tice from 926 Crafted Apparel.
And we had a last-minute cancellation of our guest, but it's also been, I think, 3 weeks since our last.
Yeah, I was trying to remember.
It's been a hot minute since we got the last one posted. And Ashley, my apologies if you're watching or listening. I did you dirty. I did not splice that up and do the after post or anything like that. All we did is get it launched, and I don't think we did anything with Facebook or Instagram or other than getting it posted on YouTube and Spotify. But it's on my, believe it or not, it is on my to-do list of video splicing because me and my AI editor are just going to go crazy in the next. This is why I'm trying to get back to my parents this week is because I just need a couple of days where I can lock myself in the basement where nobody's calling me, texting me, be like, hey, can you stop over here real quick? I can just lock myself in there, divvy it all up, press it, and then distribute the shorts because everybody seems to like the shorts.
Yeah, they hit pretty good.
They do. I think too many of my friends in this area are so ADD. They've only got a minute worth of attention span for like, all right, swipe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how I am with YouTube videos anymore.
Yeah.
I used to be able to sit and like watch a whole YouTube and, whether it be a home walkthrough or, a boat product review or something like that. Anymore, it's like, yeah, I'm bored.
Okay, I won't disagree with that.
Time of year.
Yeah, that's probably now I'm getting cabin fever.
Yeah.
I need to get out.
Yep. Agreed.
I run a business focusing around the efforts of shooting stuff fast while running, and I'm locked inside sanding walls.
Yeah.
It's a horrible time of year right now. No, that's terrible. But I still like the long form stuff. There's still a lot that I do. I go to bed with it now. I sleep the long form stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's more information than anybody here wants. But from the short form stuff, though, it's probably getting us the most growth and most attention. Now it's just the consistency and getting ourselves back into it. I'm going to try to find somebody for us for. You're gone next week?
No, I'm here.
You are here next week?
Yeah. We're just gone this weekend.
I'm gone next week. Never
You're
mind.
gone next
I
week,
leave Monday
yes.
through Wednesday, Thursday. The
Yeah.
Tennessee property is finally selling. They closed the 12th. I got to go down there and get my camper. Yeah, we should be done in like a week and a half. I can live like a human being for a hot second.
Nice.
I don't know what that's kind of feel like. I get to go back to paying myself again instead of paying off a credit card that I used to build this monstrosity that's in front of us. Yeah, that'd be weird. It's literally like a $3,500 swing of finances per month for me. It's just bonkers how that's just how that changes things. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so some of the stuff we were talking about before, what do you have going on that's worth like talking about right now?
Let's see. Well, as of probably when this is posting, Dana and I are heading to Wisconsin, moving the shop to Wisconsin.
I love everything about it.
Not full time, just kidding. We're setting up a booth at it's called Think Tank. It's basically the Wisconsin Water Ski Federation expo. It's a bunch of think tanks, bunch of people getting in a room and talking water skiing and everything from techniques to the actual skiing part to the business side with, like how to make money for your team, how to run a, productive fundraiser, how to, manage, risk and, liability and things like that. So there's a tank pretty much for everything you could ever imagine on running a non-for-profit water ski team. So whether it be, a show ski team like we're involved with, or, just a water ski club. I mean, there's pretty much something for everybody. But so we'll be up there. We're launching the new brand this week. We opened it up last week. We opened the website last week. Sales have been good. It's one of those, we want to see it and touch it and feel it and squeeze it and hug it and, all that stuff. So I think this weekend will be really busy for us. But yeah, Rope Theory is live, and
I've been watching your ambassadors popping up on your Facebook. That's been really cool.
We got some heavy hitters. Yeah, we got some real heavy hitters. And it was this whole process has been a learning process, obviously, but very enlightening. Like all the steps that are involved with it. You think, oh, hey, we're just throwing a name on a T-shirt. Well, that's exactly what we didn't want to do.
Right.
Anybody. I watched a good. We're gonna go way off topic here. I watched a good.
These are the videos people want.
Yeah, a good YouTube. Funny, we were talking about YouTube. Good YouTube video this weekend. I actually did. It was 18 minutes long.
Whoa.
And it was about the rise and fall of No Fear.
Yeah.
The brand No Fear. So that brand started as Life's a Beach. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So it was Life's a Beach, No Fear, and Bad Boy Club. And they were all three by the same brothers. Brian Simo, he's a race car driver now. But him and his brother from like Naperville area. I think Naperville, Aurora, somewhere in Illinois. They were Illinois boys. So they started Life's the Beach was the first brand, and they it was really cool the way they started it. They were motocross guys at the time, and they would show up to these motocross events, and it was just the same old whatever, and they're Illinois boys and farm, kind of farm country, just ripping on dirt bikes in the fields and whatnot. They go to California, show up at California, and these guys are wearing these, little nut hugger shorty shorts. And both of them are like, mate, no way in hell we're going to wear that shit. We need something, something a little longer. So the one brother, or maybe a friend of theirs, whatever it was, their girlfriend had a sewing machine. And she would make her own shorts. And the one brother said, hey, can you make us some shorts? So she's like, yeah. So they went around to garage sales, to flea markets, to thrift shops, and they started buying the most obscure fabric they could find, whether it be a curtain, whether it be a tablecloth, whether it be a piece of carpet, whatever it was they could find, and they brought it home and they sewed it into shorts, and they were knee-length shorts.
Yeah.
So they had really wild patterns. If you can think about curtains of the early 90s, there's some pretty wild stuff. So that's how they were making these shorts. Obviously weren't the most comfortable shorts they made because of the material. But they show up at an event. They made 50 pair. They show up at an event, had their bikes in the trailer, threw all the shorts in a box. And they both were wearing them. And Ricky Johnson, who was a really huge motocross guy back in the day, saw them. And he's like, hey, I've got to have a pair of those shorts. And they had like these or yellow and blue tiger striped shorts that was from napkins. And they sewed the shorts together out of a couple different napkins. He saw the shorts and he's like, I got to have those. So he went back to his brand manager, his race manager, and he's like, hey, can I wear these shorts over my kit? My kit's kind of boring. I want to bring some fun to the event. And his brand manager's like, yeah. He goes, you go out and win this race. I don't give a fuck what you do. Just do what you want. So he goes out and wins it, and he puts these shorts on over his racing kit. People see it and they go nuts. And that basically started it. They had people lined up, 200 people deep to get 50 pair of shorts, basically. And that's how the brand launched. And then they just kept going and going and going. And it was cool because it talked about, there was no punches pulled. Like it talked about the rise and how they went from Life's a Beach to Bad Boy Club, and how they went from Bad Boy Club to No Fear. And how it was all based on that kind of Southern California motocross era rage, extreme sport before extreme sports were extreme sports. And it talked about how they got too big for their britches, basically, and how they got, like they went retail, they went, but they didn't go to like retail in stores. They created their own stores.
Yeah.
They got into a bunch of different product lines that they really had no business in, like golf. And then the personal egos got in the way, and the brothers would get in fist fights in the boardroom, and all that goes along with growing too big too quick.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up being that, like, their golf brand, they had all this high-end golf stuff. They sold it to JCPenney. And when they sold it to JCPenney, it became not cool anymore, because nobody wants clothes from JCPenney,
right.
So it died. Like, the brand started going downhill. Then they sold off to some equity firm, and instead of having private branded T-shirts, they were throwing them on the cheapest Gildan or Fruit of the Loom T-shirt they could find, and it became just another name on a shirt.
Yeah.
And it was like the timing of that, watching that was perfect for me, because with Rope Theory, when we created this, we didn't want it to be another name on a T-shirt. We wanted it to have a purpose. We wanted it to have a place. We wanted it to have meaning, out above and beyond. So creating the process, I started with a business plan. Just like we would have for the business, we did it for just the sub-brand. Like, what kind of products should we do? Do we want to just create a bunch of T-shirts and see what sticks and what doesn't? Or do we want to make it more demand-driven, where we do, drops every month or every quarter or whatever, have our staples, but then do our drops? Then it was, okay, what's your product mix? As far as sizes and colors and, all that stuff. So then, we figured all that out, got kind of a baseline of, like, this is our signature drop. This is what's going to introduce the brand. And it's, it's a little bit different than what we normally would do. It's an embroidered front jacket or sweatshirt with a printed back, and it kind of tells the story of Rope Theory and how we got to where we were, or how we came up with it and what it's meant to be. And then once we got the product mix down, then we went to, okay, how do we promote it? Well, obviously social media. We're not going to create a website for it, because for the standalone brand like that to have its own website at this point of it really isn't beneficial.
Yeah.
We have a retail spot that we can sell it in. We can sell our online through that way, so we have that covered.
And frankly, people need to know the product exists before they can start searching for it anyway.
Exactly. So then, we have explored retail, and we do have a retail outlet that's going to take the product on this spring. They're a major player in kind of the towed water sports game as it is. They are established. They've been around a lot of years. They're skiers themselves. They have a place in Lake Geneva that's, it's the go-to, for the area as far as brick and mortar ski shops go. There's not a lot of them left, and they're one of the few, and they're like, yeah, we're on board. Let's put something together. So, that'll be coming. And then, obviously just the hard launch of us doing what we're doing now, but how do you sustain that? Well, sustain it through product ambassadors.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get people excited about it, you get people wearing the brand, but you can't just do, like me or you would be like, they're just wearing a sweatshirt or a T-shirt or whatever,
right.
So we went out and we really dug deep, and we did a little bit of pirate marketing too. at the Chicago Boat Show. We showed up with koozies. We showed up with, I forget, we hit hats and sweatshirts and, actually had some people like, what is rope theory? It's actually, I like the name. What's it about? And, explained it to a few people, and they're like, oh, let us know when things go live and whatnot. So when we started looking for brand ambassadors for it, our goal was to get some of the heavy hitters in the sport. Obviously we focused on the show skiing side because that's where we're at.
It's familiar territory.
It's familiar territory, right? But we're not limited to that. We're going to expand to, probably a couple of different segments. Whether it be the 3-event segment, maybe the wakeboarding side, the surfing side. A little bit. The athletes that we did pick up are, like I said, they're heavy hitters. They're, 4-time national champions. They're world team members. They're, Team USA members. They're 26-time national champion member. So they're people that have been in the sport, and you say their name and people know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was important because those are the type of people that draw the attention. Those are the type of people that when they see that shirt, the 13-year-old girl that looks up to Maddie because she's an awesome swivel skier is going to go, I want to wear what she's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Creates a culture.
drivers, and we have Maddie, who is a, multinational champion, world team, or, Team USA member, reps a couple different brands already. It's just, she's a hell of a barefooter. She dabbles in every sport, as far as the towed water sports goes. So she was like when we first talked about it, that was the person I wanted the most. Like, I'm like, this is my focus. This is one person I've got to get in the mix. And it worked out that she was like, hell yes, let's do this. So that worked. Jessica, who she's been around a while. Like, she's been show director for Wonder Lake. She's a former professional water skier. She's the show director, and I don't really know what all she's in charge of for SeaWorld in Texas. So she's kind of like keeping that show alive. And she reached out to us. We didn't initially reach out to her. She reached out to us, and she's like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to rep if you guys need something, some help, I'd love to be a part of it, see this through. I love the message, blah, blah, blah. So that was kind of a no-brainer in itself, because you want people that are excited. You want people that see the potential and see the mission behind the brand, not just a T-shirt,
Yeah.
And then Aaron, who's a boat driver, he's done some skiing. He was a nationally ranked barefooter, boat driver. He drives the big boat for Janesville, multi-national championships, pulls 35 girls in his ballet line. Just he's one of the best. He's a national tester for boats. So he gave us, and he was a late addition. Like, we had another person in mind, and when Aaron dropped, he reached out and he said, hey, I apologize. I didn't see the message about the applications. I'd love to be involved. What do you need from me? I'm like, send in your app. Let's look it over. And, that was kind of a no-brainer, because under rope theory, we're going to have kind of different divisions too. Like, there'll be, like, our crew division is obviously our ambassadors, and, that'll be kind of a unique product line in itself. They'll have, first rights to some of the new product, a couple drops, they get some freebies all year long type thing. They're the people that we're investing in to help us grow this brand. And then under that, then we have like a tow ops division, which is focused on the drivers and the spotters and, the show coordinators on the shore, and, all the people that are kind of like on the other end of the rope, than what the skiers are. But still tied together with that rope, and they're kind of, it's funny, when we created the mission, one of the taglines that came up was choreographer of chaos. And that's truly, I'm a boat driver, so I live it every day, all summer long. you're truly the choreographer of chaos. Like, what's going on that end of the rope is absolute chaos. Your goal is to get that chaos that way and back to the shore without anybody getting hurt and, you know, everybody making it back and whatnot. So it's the most stressful thing. It's way harder than skiing ever was for me.
Yeah.
But it's the challenge, you know, and it's fun. So we brought him in kind of to be the anchor of that division. You know, and then she's so well-rounded that, you know, we're gonna have we have plans for her too, as far as some marketing stuff, and she's, you know, that's kind of her focus, and you know, the collaboration side, you know, with all three of them really, but the focus will be, you know, with Jess for sure, on some of the things that she brings, and, you know, so far the energy's there. Now it's maintaining it.
Yeah, and that's always the kicker. So did you know all these people personally prior to, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they're, you know, Maddie was a former skier in Janesville. You know, like her amateur team was Janesville, the Rock Aqua Jays. Erin's a boat driver for the Rock Aqua Jays. Maddie's since moved. Well, she moved to Florida. She was in Florida for a couple of years, doing her thing down there. And then, like, I think she was at Lego for a little bit, and just hit and miss other places. She was at Tommy Bartlett's for a while. Then she moved up to Sainer, Wisconsin, way up there. But she does a thing every year. It's kind of cool. She skis in the cranberry bogs. She has a friend that, I don't know if they work there at one of the bogs or if they just know people that own it or whatever, but they do a thing every year where she does a photo shoot in the bog, and, you know, all the cranberries are floating, and she's skiing by, getting pulled by, you know, either a truck or four-wheeler or side-by-side or something, but it's pretty cool. It's cool. So then, yeah, so I knew her from, we did some stuff for her last year, but, you know, I've known her for a couple years. She's done some, like, barefoot clinics for us and some swivel clinics for us and whatnot. And then Jessica is, I know her from Wonder Lake, from their ski team there. And she's just, you know, she's been around the sport. Her and her husband have been around the sport forever.
Yeah.
Probably longer than I have. But, you know, our paths have crossed over, you know, multi-years. So,
It's a small world.
yeah, it really is. It really is. Yeah.
A lot of those communities are.
You know, you see, like, the Facebook likes and stuff. It's like, oh, I know that. Oh, really? They know that person too? You know, it's just kind of, like, neat the way that things cross, and, you know, but, yeah.
No, I dig that. That's huge, and I like the idea of the brand too, because it pushes everything else forward.
Right.
It's a better idea than I've ever done with, like, Down Range, because we're big into pushing the culture of, you know, the self-defense side of it and being like, hey, preparation, doing the work. It's not just putting a gun and strapping it on. And I've never really had a good way to, like, push that culturally, other than, you know, socially, be like, all right, if you're in our circle, you're putting in the work, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I never even thought about, like, the branding side of it, because, like you said, rope theory that's the culture, that's the mission that everybody should be trying to reach for, to attain.
Right.
I've never thought about that. I think I'm too dumb for that, to try to put together a brand like that, but
It's always been something that I've wanted to do. And, you know, with us, with the shop, we always, you know, we have that outlet. We have that ability to do that. It's extremely easy. We had a meeting last week, or Dana did, I wasn't there, but she had a meeting with the apparel manufacturer that I really like their stuff. Like, it's a little higher quality, you know, than just the normal stuff that we do. Just kind of what we wanted to focus the brand around. Real good meeting with them. They've got a really good product offering. They have the way that their product is designed. It's designed for private labeling. And that was something that I've always wanted to do, not only for rope theory, but for 926 as well.
right.
Because I want people to be able to grab a shirt, look at it, and go, oh, that came from 926. You know, I don't care if it's on the rack at our house, on a rack at Hope Chest, or on a rack at Salvation Army in DeKalb.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to see where it came from. That's advertisement. the one thing that I like about the brand that we're using is there's some legal requirements for private branding. You have to tell where the product is made and how to wash it and what the material content is. They do a side tag on all their stuff. Like it's just a real small little side tag, so it's not going to be itchy, scratchy,
Yeah.
And it's all there. So I don't have to put it on my label. So I can just do a real generic, not generic, but I can do a real generic wash instruction label and focus more on our product, on our brand.
Yeah.
So that was intriguing. So that, we're moving forward with that. But yeah, I mean, it's with the former business partners, we never had that opportunity.
Yeah.
They were dead set against it, so.
That comes into it, but I also like that you're focusing on a better quality or a higher tier than people would normally go out to purchase. I like that for a couple of big reasons. One, because it's targeting the audience that it's really aiming for an audience that you are targeting, because if you can afford to do these activities, you can afford a better quality product. And they frankly want the better quality product.
Right.
It's not aimed at Joe Schmo. It's not a product designed to be for everybody. It's meant to be, hey, this is who we're focusing our energies on, and the people that are going, oh, that's a cool shirt. I'd like to, but man, you're $10 too expensive.
Right.
This isn't for you anyway.
No.
It's not that you're disqualifying anybody per se. It's saying if you believe in the mission, the $10 doesn't mean the total cost doesn't mean anything, because you believe in the mission.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what people really need to kind of get behind. And a lot of people, like day to day, get lost in that with any, and this is true of the retailers we have in town and some of the boutiques we have in town, is what's the mission? The price is secondary to what the mission is. It's not a, casually I'm going, I'm wandering downtown going, oh, that's a neat shirt. Oh, that's kind of expensive.
Yeah, right.
It's the people walk in and go, hey, tell me about this. And when they
Yep.
hear that, they go,
I'll support that. Yep.
yeah, because we had our original prices for our ball caps for Down Range were $15 a piece, and when we raised them to 20, we got a lot of hing and hawing, because by no means the brand. Everything going on with the Echelon, and that kind of is turning into a brand of itself. We had to bump the price to $30 because we're trying to make it worth, because it's not just marketing thing; it's actually funding or trying to fund everything else. Nobody has flinched once, because when they hear about what the Echelon is, what we're doing with it, what that money's going towards, it's cool.
Yep.
Absolutely. Nobody has sneezed at it for $30 for a ball cap, which I get why that could be a hard thing to kind of swallow, but this is not just a generic Nike, everybody wants one.
Yeah,
you want to get, brand recognition. Yes, we want recognition, but we want people to invest in the Echelon concept, and they're willing to, pay a little extra to be able to be part of that.
Right.
Because you're not paying for the hat, you're paying to be part of everything that's going on here right now.
Yeah. And that's what, with us too, it's interesting simply because of the tie between 926 and Rope Theory.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not that, we're not doing it to promote 926. 926 is a partner in the venture.
Yeah.
We're not set up as a separate entity or something. It's a subcategory of a product offering that we have through the shop, but we're not doing it to build 926 at all. Obviously, our brand ambassadors, our brand ambassadors have access to the full catalog of 926 and us. So there's obvious ties there, and we're not going to shy away from that. But the intent is to build the culture.
Yeah.
No different than showing up at a motocross event and buying a Bad Boy Club shirt, or a Fox Racing shirt, or a Monster Energy shirt, or whatever the brand is. They're buying that for the culture. They're not buying it because that particular brand is doing anything other than supporting an event that they love.
Right.
And that's the growth. We have a good friend of ours, Danny Amir, who he's kind of the brainchild of Toad Watersports, really. He's so involved in it, and you sit down, he's the most obscure guy you'll ever meet. I've known him probably 20 years, maybe-ish, through the water skiing industry. actually when we were doing the Red Bull, events, when I was with the Red Bull stuff, ran into him in Chicago. He was the announcer for the Red Bull Chicago Flutog in 2013, I think it was. Most random things, some like, hey, we got a mutual friend, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, we both show skiers, blah, 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 blah. Ran into him at the diviest dive bar, in Chicago. Couldn't tell you what bar it was, couldn't tell you where it was at. Somewhere between Michigan Avenue, LaSalle, and Erie. So it's right downtown. Go in, he's sitting at the bar by himself, 11 o'clock at night, just having a drink, whatever, talking and, hanging out with people and whatnot. Went in, we talked to him, shared some stories. Every year the memory pops up, picture him and I, it's just kind of funny. But he started a brand with some other folks called Lake Lovers Club, and their focus was basically, and it still is, responsible lake use. Don't go by the same dock 10 times playing your music at 10, throwing the big surf wake. Go to a different section of the lake. Be responsible. Don't throw your trash. Common sense stuff, but their mission is to really promote that. And their mission is towed water sports in general. It doesn't matter if you're getting towed on a tube, a disc, a ski, whatever it is. If you're behind a boat, behind a cable, whatever it is, that's kind of their mission.
Yeah.
And when I started that brand, it was like, I don't know, years ago, it was like, I always wanted to do something like that. And, even though we're kind of focusing on the same towed water sport aspect, our goal is not to take away from anything that they're doing.
Yeah.
Our goal is to, in fact, promote what they're doing through our brand, because we're still doing the same things. And, ultimately I want to do some collabs with them, and I think the opportunities are there. But that's kind of like, you can't have too many positive promoters of something.
Yep.
And whether it be, towed water sports or, bicycling or, gun shops or whatever it is, the more cross marketing, what is it?
It's cross promotion, cross coordination, like you said.
Yeah, activism, type thing. It's, you can't have too much of that, regardless to what it is.
No. And the nice thing, and me and you have discussed this before at length, is the nice thing is you have your network, they've got their network.
Yep.
Yes, there's going to be some overlap, but there's some that's not. And the nice thing is when you guys start working together, people will expand, because nobody goes out and, just for the sake of brand garments, for example, nobody buys just the one T-shirt. Be like, right. Oh, I've got Lake Lovers Club. I cannot get a rope theory. It's suddenly, hey, those are really cool. I'd like to support that.
That's my culture
as well. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, I didn't know there was a cultural element here that joined that. Mm-hmm. And then you swap, because you cannot invariably take from them without also sharing on their end as well. It just makes sense to do.
You look at people in general, whether it be the guy that goes to, the Ariat store and buys an Ariat T-shirt.
Yeah.
The chances are he buys an Ariat T-shirt. He probably has Ariat boots. He probably wears Wrangler jeans. He lives that, what do you want to call it, rodeo culture, farm, that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. So, and there's probably a ton of different brands in that I don't know about. Yep. You look at, in the gun, area, there's a ton of different brands. Mm-hmm. I highly doubt the guys that are in that, in that activity are going out and buying a Smith & Wesson shirt, because Smith & Wesson's not cool. You know what I mean? There's probably another brand out there that has a cool logo that they want to go, that's the stuff I want to wear. Mm-hmm. In the water skiing industry. I look at my closet. Dana gets mad at me because I've got, who to thunk, owning an apparel shop. I've got way more clothes than she does. In fact, we're building her a new closet, so I have places for my clothes. That's what she tells me. I think it's so she can get out of my closet, but so she can have her own space. But you know, I look at like my clothes, and I would say probably 75% of them are water ski related stuff, whether it be sweatshirts or t-shirts or, you know, whatever. But it's just because that's the culture that I live. You know, it's not, I don't know that it's really intentional, but I'll go to a store and see a shirt and I'll be like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's water ski related. I'll buy it. You know, whether it be a Life, you know, what Life is Good. I've got a couple Life is Good shirts. There was some, remember the old Big Johnson stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I think I still have it, 1 or 2 Big Johnson shirts that were water ski related. You know, it's just, but that's just branding. That's why you do it.
I'm the same way. If you look through my closet, it's firearms related stuff, a ton of downrange stuff, unshockingly.
Yeah.
But there's a ton of firearm stuff, HK stuff. There's a ton of cop stuff, and there's some airplane stuff, just smattered in just for color.
Right.
But it's all the cultures that I am in day to day, week to week. That's the stuff that, you know, I'm inundated with. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of other like superfluous, random. Yeah, I don't have a No Fear shirt in my stuff.
Agree.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's great brand, but that's not my circle. That's not my area. I would never own any of that stuff, not because I disagree with it, think it's bad, not in any way, shape, or form. It's just not my area. I'm going to get one of your Rope Theory hoodies, not my circle at all. I'm terrified of water, for the record. I'll drive the boat or I'll drink the beer. You're not tugging me behind nothing.
He says that. Just wait.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this summer. Jesus. Let's face another fear, man. With that said, and the other flip side to that, though, is why I want to have something like that and I would wear like same thing with like Stetter Tattoo. Right. Like that culture for me is the small business culture too. That's the other like thing. I've got AP Massage Therapy. I got Matt Stetter Tattoos, hoodies and T-shirts, and I wear all of these guys' stuff, their hats, their ball caps and stuff like that all the time because I love the small business mentality, the lifestyle, the character, the people. That's part of that culture. I might, I had a Midwest shirt back in the day too. And I wore that not because I'm ever buying anything from Midwest Clothing. It's a women's boutique store. Right. I support the culture and I support that lifestyle. And to them, it might represent women's fashion. To me, it represents hey, we're the bootstrapping small business that's trying to make it work in the small town environment, et cetera, et cetera. And I will do that every day and twice on Sunday. That's not even a second thought for me because I love that world. I'm actually, with all that copious spare time that I have, I want to start getting back into a lot more networking events that I used to do, and I haven't recently in the last year and a half. So like the St. Charles, their Chamber of Commerce is super, super active and super, super busy with massive, massive networking events. And it's such a huge community too. There's, you know, their regular networking events have 100 people, 200 people show up to their events.
Yes, right.
I can work a room every day for a year and see different people every time. Yep. I miss that culture. Not to speak against Rochelle by any means. We have a lot of guys that are bootstrapping and trying to make things work and are making things work. But it is a very small pool here of the operating like small businesses. Right. This is accidentally segueing what we were talking about with the DRA and talking about that. We really, really want to. I like being part of those communities where everybody is mutually getting together on a regular basis, trying to help each other grow and be successful and coordinate and co-work and kind of commiserate over the things that are working, that aren't working, figuring it out. I was talking to Jeff Starr this morning with the building department with the city. And he was mentioning, he's like, yeah, I kind of feel weird because I'm almost from the enforcement side, so I don't like going to a lot of ribbon cutting and stuff. And I'm like, I loved having you at them, especially as a new business owner, from a new business owner standpoint. He kind of looked at me and I'm like, because this is if I didn't need you for anything up to this point, doesn't mean I won't. Yeah. And it's nice having FaceTime with you on a social setting, in a supportive setting, then you show up and be like, oh, by the way, we've got a code enforcement issue that we need to talk about. Right. I can sit there and go, hey, I'm the new business. It's good to meet you. I, like being able to put a face to the name. And he can sit there and shake your hand and say, if you have questions, my phone's on. Yep. I have an open door policy anytime, whatever. You can do that. And he's like, okay, that makes sense from that side. I don't feel as awkward. Yes, I don't necessarily, am in the thick of it, but he's like, because he's not a big photo guy. He'd rather be in the back. He'd rather be doing the job than being in the, he's not glad. He's not a politician. He's a guy who works, which is what we love, especially from our city officials. He's like, I haven't heard that perspective before. I'm like, all these guys starting these new businesses, the first time you do, there is no guidance. When I started Down Range, whether it was the instructional thing 15 years ago or the store 4 years ago, there was no real playbook on how any of this stuff works. And in Rochelle in particular, there weren't a lot of businesses that hadn't been here that are either in the same boat as I was, just kind of winging it, or the business had been there so long, how they got started doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the other end of it. There wasn't a lot of interim of, hey, let's sit down, and the networking opportunities that presented themselves, the people that would probably be the most useful didn't attend them.
Right.
They have different priorities because they had operating businesses that weren't really benefited necessarily. And, I'm not going to knock any of these guys because a lot of guys just have, you have this much bandwidth that you have, this much is spent day to day, this much is spent on family, this much is spent on friends, your like regular non-work friends, because a lot of people want the escape. They want it, and I've got friends that do this too. This is why I've got the aviation thing. It gets me away from Down Range. We get together once every other week or so, and I get that. And it's like, oh, cool. Let's go to a networking event that has no financial perk or business benefit. And the funny thing is, they're always friendly. They're always willing to talk business and stuff with me. I don't know if they even realize that it would be a form of giving back as opposed to something they're going to gain from. It is giving back to the community to help these other businesses kind of grow and expand. Like my contractor is new at this. I'm working with them a lot because I've worked with other guys and other contractors and talked to them, so I kind of talk to him about it. I don't know what circles he's allowed to work in, and when you're new to that kind of thing, and we've discussed this too with potential competitors for you, he doesn't feel. I don't know how he feels comfortable going to another contracting firm in the area and say, hey, how do I bid a job? How do I price this? How do I get a commercial account at Menards or, wherever for lumber and materials so I don't have to cash out front. I can do net 60, net 30, et cetera. When I'm in the middle of a project, I'm going to get paid in 35 days. Can I get net 60 terms so I'm not chewing up all of my cash on the front end?
Right.
Because I need to live off of that, that first 50% that I'm taking down. Those circles don't exist, and a lot of these guys, I think, finally got to the point. Again, not a knock. They were like, okay, I finally made it. I don't need to chase those things anymore, so I can breathe and just kind of relax and not sit on their laurels, because I don't think that's the case with any of them. But it doesn't even click in their head that, these guys have to learn from somewhere short of just working for you and then becoming a direct competitor. And this is almost better because they're not. If I bring somebody up under my belt and then they go and start their own business in my same town, that is 100% going to steal business directly from me because they're going to use shared customer base. Because how can't they? If they're starting another business, their customer base is the same people you've been working with unless they have a social circle independent of that.
Right.
But they're going to call the contacts that they have. That's why no competes are such a big thing over the last 10 years. People are talking about, I don't want you to be, if I bring you up as my car dealership that are in town, I don't want you working at a car dealership if you leave here within 50 miles of here, because you've got a Rolodex of regular customers that you buy cars every couple of years, whatever, whether they're business contacts, people that collect cars, people that just don't like to keep cars, they only lease cars. So you're going to have another client every 3 years if you treat them right. Cool. I'm leaving. I'm not going to name anybody so I don't piss anybody off here. I'm going to go to this other dealership down the road, and I'm going to take all that clientele even though they spent the time investing in you, allowing you to figure out marketing, social media, etc. Yes, maybe you were treated right, maybe you weren't treated right, maybe you're going just because it's a better paycheck, maybe it's because it's a better network, maybe it's a better product. Do you want to lose all that stuff that you invested in by dumping them elsewhere? Right. That's almost a harder pill to swallow than if I come in and say, hey, I don't work for you. I don't know your customer base. I don't have access to your customer list. I'm starting my own thing that's kind of a different niche. Can you give me any advice? Can you give me any suggestions, guidance, where to look, who to talk to, etc.? Those circles are tough to find, especially here. Because people came who started businesses 40 years ago and, God, even 60 years ago in some case, God bless them for being here till this very, very day. But I've talked to a couple of those same business owners and go, if you had to start over again today, they've straight-faced, straight-laced as possible, look me in the eyes and go, wouldn't work.
Right. Yeah.
How I started it wouldn't work today. Could not do it. If I didn't own 100% of my inventory, had everything paid off, and had been successful up to this point, today, if I had to start over with nothing, couldn't make it work.
I don't know that if we had to start over in the current state, we could make it. Mm-hmm. And next April will be 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I don't know that we could do it. And not that we couldn't do it, but so much has changed.
At the same trajectory even.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Like, as a business owner, it's hard to not get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, our situation, Dana and I were never comfortable. We were always looking ahead. We were always looking, down the line. Like, with us, and we've talked about it, our goal was to always get somebody hired that shared the passion that we have, that would ultimately want to take over the business.
Yeah.
That's really the goal. And I think that's a goal that a lot of businesses don't look at. They look at, I've got to bring somebody in that's going to do a good job for me. But what would happen in a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, if something happened health-wise to Dana or I? We wouldn't want to just shut the business down. We want to be able to fall back on whoever is working for us to say, hey, would you be interested in taking this over? Or if nothing else, helping us maintain through the transition, whatever it is. Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses lose sight of that. They're so focused on the bottom line and, surviving. They're not thinking about what ifs and whatnot. And I don't know. It's an interesting place to be, especially with do not competes and just sustainable growth and whatnot, especially in Illinois.
Yeah, and honestly, I've thought about this a bunch of times. If I were to start it over, I would not have started a business that was passion driven.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons for this. Not because I don't think I run a good shop. I think I do. I think people are very supportive of it and everything that I'm doing, and the changes we're going to make, I think people are going to be very fond of. But this particular line of work is so out of my hands from legality. Like, I open my doors 6 months later, they ban 15% of my income.
Right.
Which has bleed out effect. So it's not just 15%. It's, that's what I was coming here for, but I get other things. I lose that customer base completely to a huge degree. I think a huge chunk of it is, and part of it is because I agree with wanting to have a transition period where at some point I can sell it and then use that proceeds to retire, or just have a self-running business that I can walk away from. My problem is I'm so emotionally vested in so much of it. Sometimes it's tough for me to back away and go, okay, what's actually going to be best for my business as opposed to what I want with my business. Mm-hmm. I've mentioned this before. Like, I'm very big on better quality product, education driven, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is, in this particular area, we don't have the financial foundation in this city to really peak to that. I am marketing and pushing to a network that doesn't exist in this area, right. At least to a quantity that's really truly sustainable. Right. We're making it work. We're paying the bills. We're keeping the lights on. I'm there we're pushing 4 years here. We're sniffing at 4 years of being open with the brick and mortar, and we're not going anywhere anytime soon, which is awesome, and I'm very, very proud of that fact. But I had to, in this last 6 months, really sit down with my guys and look introspectively and go, if I were to move to St. Charles, like I was talking about doing a few years ago when things were really like a rocket ship when we first started, that would be the right model for that area. it's not the right business model for this area.
Right.
And I'm
right.
still trying to figure out what that model should be here, and to be completely honest, does any model really work here? And I'm not just keeping the shop open and, keeping the bills paid and the lights on, but is this a real legitimate business that's not a hobby business?
Right.
Like, if all I wanted to do was sit behind a gun counter 24 hours a day, I'm open 6 days a week, my butt's sitting there, I would do fine. I would generate enough revenue to live comfortably enough. I'm not getting rich, which, that's never necessarily the goal. What my goal is success. Mm-hmm. I don't think getting to a point where the best you can is sustainment is necessarily the good goal. I think there should always be a growth component where it's getting bigger, because it's not just good for me individually, selfishly, and it is better for me selfishly if we can go bigger. It's better for the community around, because then we can bring other tiers of people within the structure of the business, right. And then we're helping develop the rest of the community as well. If you've got businesses that are just mom and pops with no growth, no nothing, it's just you're always there, you're always consistent, that's fine, but that doesn't actually help the community necessarily.
Well, I think, too, towns the size of Rochelle, and it's not a knock on Rochelle by any means. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think what a lot of cities and a lot of towns forget with their small business is most small businesses rely on outside of that town for business. Mm-hmm. We do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you do. Teresa does. Kenny's do. Lonnie does. I think, people, Quinn, he's probably brings business in from out of town. I think a business like Naomi, her focus is Rochelle.
Yeah.
That's always been her focus. Her core business comes from Rochelle. But what the cities don't realize is businesses like ours and the ones that I've mentioned, we're bringing money into the city. Mm-hmm. And they forget that, I shouldn't say they forget it. I don't think they realize it to the level that it should be realized, because every dollar that this weekend that, we go to the Wisconsin thing, we're paying tax. Mm-hmm. We're bringing that money back to Rochelle. Mm-hmm. Every event that we do this summer, we're bringing that money back to Rochelle. That's tax money that's going into the city. Yep. We're running through our business. It's an extension of our business. We're just doing it in another town. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a way to help businesses realize that and see that, and help cities see that, and actually have something to measure that by. Mm-hmm. Because sure, all the grants and all the help and all the assistance is great, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really help grow the business.
No.
And that's where we've got to get to, is growing all these businesses. Your business, my business, their business, her business, his business. Fighting each other and protecting our assets isn't doing it.
Yes. And the other part with the growth and the forward thinking as opposed to a stationary business is, as your communities get older, we're replacing the older population that is used to that and says things are fine just the way they are. They get older, they go into homes, they become less, they move to Arizona, they move to Florida, they die, and they're getting replaced with a younger group that wants something different. And then they go into a lot of these places and go, this doesn't have something for me. Right. And you get caught up in what you want, I don't want to provide.
Right.
You're right, that's fine, but that's why you always should have, for a truly healthy business that, like I said, is not a hobby business, you need it to be adaptive for that. Mm-hmm. And to grow with that. And sometimes it means keeping the old to keep the older ones happy, and then eventually you phase that out when it's no longer in demand, and being able to make that adaptation and grow. And sometimes it requires that change of ownership because then, cool, that gives you that adaptation that you wouldn't have otherwise as well. But you're right. We want to bring people in. We talk about this constantly and to no end. We need, especially city money, needs to be getting in there to drive people to town. I got in this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. They were mentioning that, one of the communities they live in, they're focusing on tourism. They're not focused on the local residents. And I had this conversation earlier today. I run a luxury goods store. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Firearms is a luxury goods store. You only buy my stuff if you can afford to buy it. If you're running paycheck to paycheck and it's a difference between going to get food or spending $600 on a Glock, you're getting lunch. Yeah. Which is fine. The problem is we're in a community where we're below the state poverty line. Like the average household income in the city of Rochelle is below the state average poverty line, dollar amount. The locals aren't shopping my business. Yes, could I potentially open a business that's tailored to our locals? Maybe, but the problem is that's Walmart. That is what Walmart is tailored to. Right. That's what Aldi is tailored to. Would we love to have a grocery store in Rochelle that has a higher grade of produce, a higher grade of meat, et cetera, et cetera? Yes, the population that's here won't support it. So in this other community is in the same boat that we are. We need to be emphasizing what we can provide outside of the community. And by the way, if our businesses grow, cool, we need local workforce to help sustain our businesses and operate our businesses. And if that's popular, the pay goes up, et cetera, et cetera. It's the wonderful, the way basic economics works in a small business. You make us more popular, I can hire more staff, and I can pay them more because we have the volume to justify doing it. If I have 5 people come through my store all day long and spend $1,000, cool. My profit line on that is $250. Right. 3/4 of that's going to salary. That does not justify it. But if we bring people to town that know, Down Range is here in our area, and I'm getting 50 people coming through my store a day, spending $10,000 a day, I can justify raising the pay rate that I'm offering everybody, and I can up the number of people that I have on my payroll. Right. And anybody who's worked for me before knows it's all about training my guys to be competent at what they do. So you're going to learn skills no matter what. Yep. But we need to get people here to visit. Yes, maybe I don't have a product that you're going to buy locally here in Rochelle as it sits, but those outsiders are going to make it so the community as a whole is going to be better as well. Mm-hmm. But it's tough getting people to wrap their head around that concept. It's what are you doing for me right this second? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, but we also fight each other. Oh, yeah. And I don't say fight each other as businesses as much as I say fight each other as business organizations. You have multiple business organizations that are trying to do the same thing but don't support each other. Right. And that's a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem that needs to be addressed because there's no reason each entity, each group has their focus point, their shtick, if you will, their whatever it is. Okay, build off of that. Mm-hmm. Don't step on this one's toes because they want to do things a little bit different than you do, and don't get offended when that one doesn't do what you want them to do. Mm-hmm. Push them to do what they're going to do. I think we all have opportunities to support each other and to mask each other's problems, but we have to work together to get there. Right. You can't build, you can't grow, you can't any of that with all the negative energy, and bringing money into our community should be everyone's number one goal. Mm-hmm.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do we do that? That's the $1 million question.
Yeah, pretty much to a T. But you're right. Instead of coordinating and working together, there's too much closed room doors. There's talk behind the back. It's just not getting done. But we're heading in a direction where there's definitely going to be a leadership shift in local business here in town, I think, coming forward. Everybody who's ever talked to me knows I've got an open door policy. You can message me, call me, stop by my store anytime, and I will sit there and talk small business theory with you for days. I will coordinate with you and say, hey, I want to do this. Would you be interested? Yes. How can I help? AP massage, her bingo thing. You got to help with it this year.
Yep.
I've been at every single one of those events. My staff has been at every single one of those events. Nobody looks at a place and goes, massage therapy and gun store. That's an interesting. Nobody thinks, yeah, those guys are partners in anything. But it's Ashley's event. But Down Range is a fixture at every one of those events because that is helping the community at large. Ashley's on her own. She needs people that regularly know how to do it, run things. Cool. I've got a staff of 5 guys that are willing to step up every single time and go, yeah, what do you need?
Yep.
And we've been doing it so long now with her that we know what she needs, when she needs it, how she needs it, that there's no direction anymore. It's, hey, Brad, go do this. Hey, Matt, go do this. Hey, Matt, you're on this today. Da, 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 da. You've been, drug into the fold there, and her events just keep getting bigger. It's allowing us to coordinate together and doesn't add more load on her shoulders that requires you to. It's growing on its own naturally because we're coordinating as opposed to I've got to do it all my own from the word go. And she's doing a beautiful job of that. And I think all of us that have been contributing that have done a great job. You're trying to set me up with new women at every event. I think they just want to see me married off for whatever reason. What poor girl goes forward and does that, I apologize in advance, but you were warned.
We're going to make it happen.
We're gonna make it happen. Oh my God. I am excited for what we have in mind for the DRA though. I think this is as good a time to do a quick segue into this one because I think we started about 5 or 10 minutes into it, but
a few minutes.
And then we go long. Who cares? I'm gonna splice it down to an hour no matter what. Don't worry. I like a lot of the stuff you and I have talked about, and you're spearheading this. So I'm gonna let you run with what you have in mind with how the DRA should transform.
So. Yeah. The DRA was built around downtown. The downtown is a bunch of small businesses. Why should we limit the DRA to downtown? Why can't we expand that to small businesses? It could still be called the DRA. It could still be called the Downtown Rochelle Association. Our marquee event should be the Christmas walk. The Friday night parade, let's make that event what it should be, is a celebration of all of our accomplishments for the year, whether they're downtown businesses or up off of 38 or down on the south side or whatever it is. Let's get all the businesses involved and let's get a big conglomerate of businesses, small businesses. I don't want to go after Wheatland Tube and say, "Hey, come join our group." Mm-hmm. We have a chamber for that. Mm-hmm. That's our focus needs to be on those smaller mom and pop shops that need the kind of support that we've been talking about, that need the kind of direction that we've been talking about. We're by no means pros at it.
Right.
We're learning as much as anybody. But let's work together and let's get more people involved to make that easier for everybody. Let's share in the expense of maybe some cross promotion, get the radio station involved, do the things that use the tools that we have access to in the community together and not try to all piecemeal it here and there. And, so that's just one of the things to expand it, outside of just our 5-block radius or whatever it is. God, there's so many ideas. We've talked about some of the downtown events that you've talked about doing, with Cherry Avenue and, some of the closed street stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's all get together and make that happen. Let's bring back Echelon Lincoln. Let's bring back, we have a freaking distillery. Let's utilize it for what it is. Mm-hmm. Open on a Saturday afternoon at noon and have a bourbon on Lincoln or whiskey on Lincoln or ale, combine it all. Hell, have what do they call it? Beer, brew, and or brews bourbon and wine or whatever it is, whatever it is.
100%, yeah.
Have an event downtown with some, live music, and, the businesses are all open and we're all celebrating each other and, having that kind of stuff. There's so many ideas we can do. We just have to do it. We got to stop talking about it and do it.
Yep, and then put the mechanisms in place, because that's something the DRA has never done. We've talked about is getting somebody, whether it's an intern or somebody who's it's their job to execute, because that's the kicker, and that's I think a trouble spot we've had a problem overcoming since the word go is. Great. Everybody has awesome ideas, because I've heard phenomenal ideas from Naomi, from you guys, from me, from Blue Flame when they were there, from Midwest, from Lonnie, from the girls over at Auden. The problem is they're communal projects that require somebody to spearhead that, and we're running our own businesses, not running an entertainment organization.
Exactly.
So we need to have that person, whether it's an intern or a part-timer or whatever, we end up figuring that out when we actually get a chance to really sit down and really kind of dig into that. And that might require us to take a little time away from our other businesses to really hone in on what that person's responsibilities are going to do, because we need to train them. We can't just say, hey, congratulations, intern, now go plan Echelon Lincoln for us.
Right.
But that is a temporary investment that will really let things kind of explode, because then that is going to give us the opportunity to draw people from DeKalb, draw people from Rockford, draw people from Oregon, from Stillman, from DJ, Lee, Stillman, or Stewart, whatever, and then really kind of let them supplement things, because there's a lot of money in a lot of the surrounding communities, but they're going to Oregon, they're going to DeKalb, they're going to Rockford, because they're like, well, we just don't have what we have right here, because nothing sustains it. But they don't even, and a lot of times when it does pop in, they don't even realize it. We have an arcade downtown that a lot of people still don't know. We have an arcade downtown, which is actually a really neat little setup, and he still has the Space Invaders record, I think. Who knew?
Galaga.
My apologies to the nerds out there. These are things that we all need to be drawing people into want to support.
Yes.
And if we can get that organization going, we can get ourselves somebody that's going to be responsible for that organization. So our own little admin director, or whatever you want to call it, I don't care. The title means nothing to me. I just want somebody who wants to do the job, cares about our town as much as we do, and wants to see it be successful. Because if we can get that in place, sky's the limit. It really is. You could see this town really, really explode. You really could.
We've spent so many years, and I say we as a group, talking about ideas, talking about, this needs to be better, this needs to be this needs to be that. And like you said, we bring an idea to the table and it gets talked about for 2 months, because we only meet once a month. And then it's like, oh, that's too much work, I don't want to do that. And then it gets pushed aside, and it gets pushed aside further. We're right now on the cusp of having every one of our downtown businesses need to be locked in arm to arm, hand to hand, because once that back parking lot closes and the alleyway closes and they change Lincoln Avenue to the one way, and we all need to work together to make this work. Because it's great, you're going to put 15, or what they say, it's going to create 40 additional parking spots, 30 additional parking spots out front. Okay, that's great. But all those business owners, all those employees, all those whatever it is that are parking out front are going to think, oh, I'm going to park out in the parking lots. They're going to park right out in front of their businesses.
Right.
And we had this discussion before. You park your personal cars in front of your business if you got to bring something into your shop or whatever, and then go move it. We have plenty of municipal lots. People that are walking out of, one of the salons downtown, they're walking out with a new do. They're not walking out with a box of, 50-pound sweatshirts. They're not walking out of Hope Chest with a T-shirt and a bag. They're walking out of Hope Chest with a an old sled or whatever.
A box full of stuff that they've accrued, yeah.
And now they're talking about putting dumpsters downtown in the middle of the streets. They're going to put one here. They're going to put one in the right across the street from the distillery, and they're going to put one next to the old furniture store.
Are they really?
Yeah, because they're losing all the dumpsters out back. So they're going to put the parking spots in, but they're going to take them away. So that's going to create an issue. So we all have to be willing and conscious to work together to make this work. Otherwise, all our businesses are going to suffer from it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's the thing that our organization, whether it be the chamber, whether it be the DRA, whether it be whatever other organization we have in this town, our city government, our mayor needs to be coming into every business going, this is what's happening. You know, our city manager, you know, interim city manager, I'm sorry, and I'm going to say it, and it's going to piss people off. Michelle Pease, John Burrows, and Sam need to be taking a tour around downtown, going into each business and having this conversation with us, not sending an email out. Because most people aren't going to read the email.
Right.
Or the Facebook post, or they're not going to see the Facebook post because the algorithm isn't set up to where the City of Rochelle stuff pops up where they see it. They're going to see it a week from now.
Yeah.
You know, it just so happens that we see it because we're in tune to it.
You're actively engaged.
We're actively engaged. So they need to be making that stroll around to each business and saying, this is what's happening. This is our intent. Where do you need our help? Mm-hmm. How can we make this better for you?
And I've gotten, and I'm pretty in depth in that circle, and nobody's approached me at all about that shutdown. I've gotten zero communication about that shutdown.
Nope.
Which is a little crazy in my mind that you're not coordinating at all with these businesses that you're actively affecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you're moving the utilities like underground, but again, how about an email to the I'm surprised there isn't an email group on any of the city server that says, hey, here are the small business ownership contact. We're going to have a city council meeting about fiber burial or utility burial that's going to shut down that alleyway, so everything has to get moved. I don't, and I get to some degree you have to kind of watch this stuff yourself, but at the same token, 99% of the time, city business doesn't affect me. So yes, I don't go to most city council meetings. In fact, I don't go to any of them. What I do is I will typically like go through the minutes after the fact. Yeah. I don't go through the agendas, and maybe that's a my fault thing. And I don't go through every minutes because most of the time I have an idea of when something's popping. So, okay, I'll keep an eye on for the minutes just to see what the response is. Anything going at the data center? Yeah, I usually pop up the minutes just to kind of get the summation of what's going on. Because I don't have 2 hours to sit in a meeting to listen to public commentary about whether we should have, data centers or not. I just don't. Mm-hmm. It would be nice to have that email list for our local small businesses that are on it. If somebody doesn't want to be on it, they'll email back and say, take me off your list. But give me the opportunity to have that update because that's guaranteed will get in front of my eyes, unlike social media.
Agree. And I can support an email, but I think it's also equally important for personal visits. We're not 100%. A big town. We're not a big town. Yeah. We're a small town. Come into our business and have a conversation with us. Come in and say, hey, these are some of the things that we're looking at. You may not have been, seeing the agenda for the city council meeting. These are the things that potentially could affect you. Mm-hmm. We want your input. We want your thoughts. You don't have to do what we say.
Yep.
If you get 15 people that give you 15 ideas, you're going to come up with one damn good idea.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to please everybody, but you have to listen to everybody. Cool. And right now, nobody's being listened to because we're not having the conversation. Mm-hmm. Other than amongst ourselves.
Which does no good because we aren't the ones that are making any of the decisions.
Agreed.
Because the stage build out, I've been very vocal since the word go about my thoughts on that stage. And fine, if the general community says Matt's wrong, we're going to go this way, that's fine. I understand that. This is not the world of Matt. But I definitely felt like the concerns that I brought to the table were just like, maybe we should look, they're the legitimate concerns that I have brought forward. And I've talked to everybody. Nobody's been approached and says, hey, Matt brought up this point.
Right.
Or take credit for it. I don't need you to say that it came from me. I don't care. If you want somebody to blame, by all means, put my name on it. I can eat blame just fine. I don't care if people are mad at me. But somebody should have, hey, this concern was brought up that this is not going to work the way that we think. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm.
And is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? That conversation hasn't ever been had with anybody.
Right.
Unfortunately, and the other problem that we run into, I've noticed, is the squeaky wheel gets the wheel. They give all the attention to the people that scream the loudest as opposed and do what they want, as opposed to maybe we should talk to everybody and realize that sometimes the squeaky wheels are right, but a lot of times they're not, and they do disagree with everybody else. And instead of going to everybody else and going, okay, we need to nut up, deal with the squeaky wheels, and be like, shut up. This isn't about you. Mm-hmm. You are not the only one here. We need to do what is in everybody's interests, and everybody else says their interests lie here. Those conversations aren't happening.
Right.
And they don't want to deal with the yelling at and et cetera. And guess what? Just because you're a city official or an elected official doesn't mean you have to get screamed at. If somebody's screaming at you on the phone, you hang up.
Yep.
If they're in your face screaming at you in your office, you kick them out. If you go to visit them in their location and they're screaming at you, you walk out. Mm-hmm. You do not have to be abused because they elected you or because you were elected. Does not give people the right to abuse you. Get comfortable with that fact and being able to go, bye.
Yep.
When I played cop for a lot of years, people would scream at me when I walk into their house, even though they'd call me because they already didn't like cops, whatever, and I would turn around and walk back out, and I'd go, victim of X, Y, and Z, refused to calm down. They were screaming at me and being verbally abusive to me without any response, justification, or reason to do so in advance. I walked out, would not handle. They were told if they want to calm down and talk to me politely and professionally, I will gladly work with them.
Right.
You get to vote, you don't get to abuse. You want to give your opinion? Cool, do it professionally.
Well, I think there's a way to have conversations like that. And it is heated. Whether it be the stage issue, the, data center conversation, who knows? Whatever the conversation is. I don't think town halls work. I'm not a fan of town halls. I won't go to a town hall because everybody feeds on the negativity. Mm-hmm. And everybody jumps to a conclusion. And, somebody could go in and say, the sky's really gray today. And everybody's going to go, it's not gray, it's black. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to keep going down that wormhole of negative. That's when people lose their tempers. That's when city officials lose their tempers. They shut it down. That pisses people off more. It's not constructive. Mm-hmm. If you want to have a town hall about roses and stuffed animals, maybe you're going to get a different result. But hot button topics, you can't. That's why I say it's so important for those people that have the decision-making ability or are in direct line of sight with the people that are making decision to come in, have a one-on-one conversation. Mm-hmm. If I have a problem with you, I'm not going to go on Facebook and say, Matt, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go, Matt, you said some things that we need to have a discussion about. I don't disagree with the message. The delivery may have been a little bit off. Mm-hmm. And let's have a conversation about it. And then we're going to agree to disagree, or we're going to find a common ground and do it. If we screw up a shirt for somebody and they bash us on Facebook, it's going to be, and we've talked about this before, it's going to be a completely different response than if that person calls and says, hey, you know what? You screwed these, shirts up or whatever it is. I'm not happy with the results. What kind of resolution can we come up with?
Right.
Now you can have a conversation. You can't have a conversation unless you initiate a conversation. You can't have a conversation by committee and expect to get a good answer.
Yep.
You can't have a conversation sending out an email without having a follow-up visit.
Right.
In my opinion.
No, I agree with that completely, and that's where you really build out and flesh out real ideas when you talk to the people that are actually involved mm-hmm. and affected. Like you said, town hall, there's no discussion in a town hall. It's we're telling you what we're doing, and we're going to give you an outlet where you can shout back at us, as
right.
opposed to a true constructive environment.
Right.
Well, that's why, a lot of these people that have run these organizational meetings, they come in and they start discussing, like, we want to do this. Let's get some ideas. That's not the setting. The setting is, let's go have an independent meeting with a small group. We're going to make the plans. We're going to say, what's the goal? We're going to build within that area, and we're going to show up at the meeting and go, this is what we're doing. Actual questions, no feedback. I don't want your recommendations now. I want your feedback, yay, nay, and then vote yay, nay, or let's or come back with another modification.
Yep.
That's all those meetings should never last more than 30 minutes.
Right.
But people are kind of confusing the two of those with having a business meeting and a constructive meeting where we're doing discovery and yada, yada. Wonderful. I love it. Except you're taking meetings that should take 15 minutes where we go, okay, I don't care about the product, not like the process. If I show up to a meeting where I'm in a decision maker, I want to know, does it meet the requirements that we set for it? Is it in budget? And can we make this work in the time frame that we want? If the answer is yes, you're going to get my vote. Or if I think it's a dumb project, I'm going to vote no, and we're going to move on with our lives. It's not the time that let's reopen every issue and discuss, well, maybe we should do it this way. Nope. Vote no, bring it back to committee and show up to a committee meeting.
I'm involved with an issue that's very similar to that right now with USA Water Ski. There's been a lot of talk for years on revamping our national tournament structure. And we have a Division I tournament, which is like the top 14 teams, and then we have a Division II, which is a few teams under that. Mm-hmm. That Division II tournament has been drawing 3 or 4 teams at most over the last 5, 6, 7 years, except for when it's in northern Wisconsin. We'll get 12 teams. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of talk about combining it. My committee that I run is in charge of that discussion, is in charge of what is this going to look like? Mm-hmm. What's the benefit? What's the drawback, pros, cons? I was tasked at our fall meeting to present a proposal at the winter meeting this Friday. That was the hardest conversation I've had all year because, one, you're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
And two, I, as the committee head, had to get it in my head that my opinion doesn't really matter. It's the opinion of everybody. We have to compile it, come up with a plan, send it out. I know I can't make everybody happy. I put a plan together with my committee that had the best interest of the event in mind, had the best interest of the general mission of USA Water Ski in mind, of the National Show Ski Station in mind, was sustainable growth and what's best for the spectators, the athletes, and the event itself. That was the goal. It's no different than business. We need to do something that sustains growth, mm-hmm. that has our community and our business owners and our business owners' patrons' best interests in mind. It doesn't have to be, everybody's not going to like it, but let's do it that benefits everybody.
Yes. That's what organizations are for.
Right. Right.
Yep. There's plenty of opportunity to be every man for yourself, but you join the organizations for the overall growth.
Right.
And we're not always going to help you every time, but we are going to do our best to help you as many times as we can.
Yep.
And as much of the time as we can. We're never going to throw anybody to the wolves and say, yeah, we're going to take your money, but we don't care about you.
Right.
Yeah, that's never going to be a thing.
No.
We're winding just a hair over an hour, I think, for this. So anything else you want to finish on?
No.
I don't think I do either. No. We're doing improvements like gangbusters here at the building, so I'm hoping to get ourselves in here as quick as possible so we can move on to the next step. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm going to try to get this thing posted as quick as we can. Hopefully tomorrow morning I'll have it cropped, ready to roll, posted, and we'll be ready for looking for our next one. So hopefully maybe end of next week, depending on how things go, we can get another one recorded and we can get back on our 2-week schedule. It's been a wild couple months.
Yes, extremely.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great one.